The TV is on, your friends are ready, and now it's time to get the food. Grubhub is here with your order. Don't just plan for a successful Sunday night watch party. With Grubhub, you can plan for the whole football season because Amazon Prime members get a year of Grubhub Plus for free. That means paying $0 on your deliveries from your favorite restaurants. Go all the way to the end zone with Grubhub. Download the Grubhub app today or visit goforgrubhub.com/Amazon to know more about our Amazon Prime deal. Terms apply.
Your favorite podcast, Therapy for Black Girls, is celebrating 5 years of empowering conversations as we continue to make mental health and wellness accessible. In addition to weekly chats with some of your favorite mental health professionals and other experts, we've flipped through the pages of your favorite romance novels with author Tia Williams, checked in with Grammy Award-winning artist Michelle Williams, and talked hurdles in sports, motherhood, and mental health with Olympic athlete Natasha Hastings. From our team to your podcast app, join us in celebrating 5 years of the Therapy for Black Girls podcast. Check it out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins.
Oh boy, welcome to Podcast Land and welcome to this specific show about independent music. Whether it's punk or hardcore or indie rock or country, as long as it's the DIY variety, you know, that whole touring in vans, just like not taking showers, all that sort of stuff. Not like you have to do that, but you get where this show is coming from. And if this is your first time here, welcome. There's almost 500 plus episodes you can dive back into. But we are here to welcome Patrick Carrie from the band Limbeck. If you have not listened to Limbeck, oh my goodness, you're in for a treat. Because first of all, you hear a little Limbeck, obviously, as we play into the interview. You know, that's what professionals do. They always play the band as you go into the interview. But all joking aside, I've loved Limbeck for ever since the first time that I saw them, which I don't know, this was maybe like early 2000s. I can't recall exactly. But then when they released, in my opinion, my favorite record of theirs, Hi, Everything is Great, I saw them repeatedly as they played around Southern California and the world for that matter, because they hit the road hard, and we talk about that with Patrick. But he has since settled down and, put in roots, worked in the surf industry for quite some time and is a talented designer there. But above all, Patrick is a tried and true independent music fan, punk and hardcore kid, plays this type of emo, alt, rock, whatever you want to call it. But anyways, we will talk to Patrick in a moment. But first of all, if you want to do me a favor, that would be great, because we all ask for favors, right? Us podcasters. If you want to email this show, you can always do that. 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. You can also leave a rating and or review on Apple Podcasts, or if you would just want to leave a rating on the Spotify app, I would very much appreciate that. All of these algorithms play into the fact that this show could be discovered by people who are interested in this subculture, and that's ultimately what I want to do. So, Limbeck, like I said, great band. Patrick, very nice human. They actually have 2 shows coming up in, of all places, Wisconsin, which is really cool. But they're playing 2 shows, April 29th and 30th in Milwaukee and Madison, respectively. But you should just dive into their catalog from a music perspective. They are continually popping up here and there, releasing music as they see fit. But yeah, Limbeck was doing the damn thing in the 2000s as far as hitting the road and playing shows and putting out records. And I just I had to have Patrick on because his lineage goes long within the Orange County independent music scene, and so that's what we did. Here is Patrick, and here's a little bit of Limbeck.
You know you've never been good to me, and I could see I'm understanding, and it's just
I'm on a Topo Chico with lime right now.
Hell yeah, dude. Topo Chico. Just nectar of the gods.
It is.
I've made no bones about the fact that, like, I love you as an individual, and I love Limbeck so much. Like, especially Hi, Everything is Great just captured me at a very particular time. And I can listen to it, and it still just, like, joy is an understatement, you know, and I'm sure that I am not the only person that has echoed that sentiment to you. But the thing that I find interesting about, you know, you guys, besides just the fact that you put out, you know, a lot of great records, but that record in particular came at that weird juncture of emo, quote unquote, growing up, you know, where it was bands could flex more creative muscle and be like, well, we're not just this type of band and we want to, you know, combine different elements of what we enjoy. Did you, I guess, kind of feel that obviously that time frame and that particular record, but did you feel that, I guess, pull and a desire to do something, I guess, more than just being, you know, a emo band from Southern California or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we were in a weird space musically ourselves. You know, Rob and I had been playing in high school in miscellaneous Green Day sounding punk bands. And that is where Limbeck started as kind of a Lookout Records-y pop punk outfit. And then I feel like we flirted with our version of what emo was at the time. And it wasn't really doing anything for anybody, I guess, you know,
Sure.
Not making any waves. So, and then, I mean, we've said this before, but so it was such a weird time where we were touring still, but just didn't have any substantial release out. And we decided not to bring our normal CD books, and we're listening to these older albums. It sounds cheesy, but we were listening to Bob Dylan and Tom Petty and stuff like that. And it was just this weird, it felt like it fit with what we were, you know, we're playing shows and traveling a lot, driving to Arizona quite a bit. And it definitely you know, that's where the music is. It's kind of this weird in-between spot between folky, twangy stuff and that kind of emo-y vibe. And I feel like it gave us something that we felt like put our flag in the ground, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I really like that challenge you gave yourselves where it's like, hey guys, we're not bringing our CD books on the road.
Well, yeah, I know. Pardon me while I date myself, but yeah, we were doing it pre iPhones, iPods, all that stuff. So there were 4 ginormous CD books, you know, rattling around the van, which was awesome. But yeah, we just were listening to different stuff, and it felt cool. We're like, this is badass. This clicks, you know. It was cool. Yeah, it was a good vibration that we were picking up, I think.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, around that age too, because I know that you and I are roughly around the same age, that it is that early 20s where you start to open up your lens to be able to listen to music beyond not only what was just put right in front of you by your, you know, discovery of, you know, punk and hardcore and everything else, but then the idea that your parents' music wasn't as lame as you thought it was.
Yeah, totally.
You're like, yeah, Led Zeppelin, not too bad. It's like, that's a revelation. Come on, you should have already known that. But yeah, to exactly what you're talking about, where it's like, let's look back because we can probably find things that we not only enjoy, but we can maybe incorporate that into what we are doing now.
Yeah, totally. I feel like, you know, I was playing these octave chords and, you know, stuff that was kind of relevant for that scene at the time. And then challenging myself, listening to a Tom Petty record and being like, man, those guitar parts are so perfect. And they're not I've never been a shredder, but I feel like they were just that sweet melodic element that was beautiful. And I think, you know, I mean, obviously we're influenced heavily by the Get Up Kids, in that emo-y phase, as well as as when they went into On a Wire kind of stuff, you know, and developing a guitar tones and all, you know, just all that stuff was very present in those records that we were listening to.
Right. And I'll pick on a few more of those threads in a little bit, but putting the focus on you as an individual, were you actually born and raised in Southern California? I do not have any idea where you kind of grew up.
I was born at Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach.
Oh, represent. That's where my son was born. Great hospital.
It's a great place. Great place.
And then I'm guessing you kind of just bounce around Orange County in regards, because like you guys, Limbeck officially said you guys were from Orange, correct? Or am I wrong about that?
I mean, it's sliding. Like Rob and I both grew up in South Orange County, Laguna Niguel to be exact. And then he probably where we did a lot of our early Limbeck stuff, he was living in Orange. So then Justin and Matt, our drummer at that time, we're both from Orange as well. So that's probably where the Orange claim came in. Yeah. And then I've been in South County forever. Like I'm in San Clemente now. I've been in San Clemente for, 15 years now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're representing that. Yeah. I do like that. I do like that, when you start to play together with friends and, you start to put together a band where, especially at that time frame too, you really try to be like, okay, where are we from? Like, where are most band members from? That's where we could say we're from.
Well, yeah, I feel like Rob and I also, Laguna Niguel is a great city, but it doesn't have necessarily the character that Orange has. And I feel like, there's band bios out there that claim Laguna Niguel. There's one that claims Tustin, I believe, because that's where Matt and Justin were living at the time. And it's touchy, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's like, and plus too, on top of that, you kind of almost wanted to claim a city that wasn't claimed, where it was like, maybe we say we're from, Anaheim Hills or whatever. It's just like, why do you care? Why should that matter? It shouldn't, but it did.
Yeah, it mattered big time.
Totally. And so what was your family structure like growing up? Because I don't know this simple biographical information about you, like brothers and sisters. What were you kind of?
One sister, 4 years younger than I, and close, great. Being a parent now, I trip on the fact that my parents were asked. I want this to sound right, but I trip on the fact that how supportive my parents are/were of my music career. It trips me out, and I don't know if it's gonna take me enjoying that perspective as my kids grow older, because like they were like, yeah, go on tour in a van with no phone, and a Thomas guide as your map. It's insane,
right? It is true. And that was actually something I was going to talk about later, because I do think that, especially if you do have that relationship with your parents that, and this is going to sound totally cheesy and cliche, but just like a relationship built on trust, where it's like that idea that your parents will give you such a long leash and be like, yeah, you can go on tour, like call us once a week or whatever, but we know you're fine. And how that can flip on like what you're saying, where it's like, if your kid came to you to do that, it'd be like, dude, I know what it was like touring and doing that. Like, I don't think that I will allow that to as much as my parents did.
It's a wild world, isn't it?
It's funny. Yeah. And so what were you, I guess, like, you've always struck me. I mean, for as long as I've known you, just, and I think that's why you and I get along so well, is we're just kind of like, whatever, goofball, happy people in general. Mm-hmm. And was that always kind of the disposition that you existed in, or did you, I guess, kind of grow into the sort of happy nerd that you are now?
Yeah, no, I think I see, as I said, my kids grow up. Like, I feel like there was definitely a finding myself period into high school where I feel like I really found my crew, which was that kind of like happy-go-lucky, positive, punk kind of kid, like that was my crew, the weirdo punk kids, but good kids. Like, I feel like we were all like positive, you know what I mean? Like I feel very fortunate for looking back at my past, like especially my high school years, like to be surrounded with such positive, creative people that with good heads on their shoulders. And I feel like I met those people in high school, and it's kind of like that vibe has stuck with me since then.
Right. Like you got hit at the right time. to be able to have those friends that had a similar disposition, and you all kind of what intentionally or unintentionally encouraged each other.
Yeah. Just a very just happenstance. Like, I just feel like it was such a lucky time of my life to meet those people that were, I looking back, like, I feel like that could be such a rough time, but like, I was surrounded by such positivity and creativity with people that were into photography and putting on shows but being positive, like it wasn't like those shitty punks. Like it was more like positive and a good community that I was surrounded with.
Sure.
Kids,
Yeah. Children,
I don't know.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally get that. So as you started to kind of go through junior high and high school and develop your own identity, I know obviously you've been interested in art and music. Those are commonalities throughout your life. Is that when that stuff started to, I guess, come to fruition, or were you, playing sports? I mean, clearly you also surf as well. Like, was that all kind of coming to a head at that particular time for you?
I think my whole, or a lot of the crew that I was hanging with were kind of sport driven people that were also into punk, which was, I guess, maybe a rare crossbreed of humans.
Yeah.
They were like, I'd say kind of jockey, but like we're all, like, a bunch of us were playing varsity soccer and running cross country, but then also we're like super tight with our photo teacher and going to shows every weekend and making zines and like, it was a good crew to be with.
I'm glad you mentioned that, of just the, and this sounds like a lot of your experience, where just that permissive nature, where you didn't have to have these hard lines in the sand of like, okay, yes, we're playing soccer and yes, we're surfing, but we can't, be artistic on top of that. Like, sometimes there is that real delineation where it's like, you can't, like, you don't want to be a jock, you don't want to do that, but you didn't have that.
Yeah, that's why I keep thinking I'm so fortunate to have those surroundings in that time. Like, I feel like where there weren't those lines in the sand that you think would be drawn.
Right, especially to where you you would feel this weird guilt in participating in one or the other, where it's like, oh, my soccer friends think I'm weird for, playing guitar and doing stage dives, and then vice versa. But it's like, no, I mean, they're not into it, but they're not judging me.
Yeah. Very, very opening, welcoming to that. And I can't, I know I keep saying it, but I'm so appreciative. Like, I just feel like it's such a weird time for people. I feel lucky,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And where did the introduction of the more subculture stuff, your punk and hardcore, because I know that you definitely got into the, straight edge hardcore and positivity scene, as it were. How did that get introduced to you? Was it kind of just through your friends? I mean, clearly you weren't operating off of an older sibling that was giving it to you. How'd you get into that?
Right. Yeah. It was actually a kid that I was playing baseball with, who I want to say passed me a Snapcase cassette and early high school. And that kind of like set this, domino effect with me and the crew that I was hanging with. And hardcore was kind of like probably my first. I guess it was hardcore and kind of like the punk though. I remember having a Green Day cassette, like a Lookout Records Green Day cassette at the same time. But it was this passing around tapes, I guess, at the time, getting into that early straight edge hardcore stuff. I go into a lot of like the shows that they have at churches and the shows they have at just weird. I remember being my mom let me drive up to Anaheim to see one that was in a dance studio, seeing Excessive Force in a dance studio somewhere. Yeah. Ignite. Yeah. Is that the answer? Is that the question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes. I mean, I think it is, interesting too, where it's like the lineage of like, okay, I'm getting into more generalized punk via, whatever, it's Green Day, Offspring, like all that stuff was clearly popping off as we were younger.
Yeah.
And then that weird desire that you have to either find something that's a little more edgy, maybe a little more aggressive, and you can't describe it or articulate it, but like once you listen to it, you're like, that's it. Like that's what I want to chase after.
Yeah. I think it was accessible in an easy way where you're not, buying tickets at Ticketmaster too, and you're just going to, like I said, like you're going to the whatever I for some reason I remember this show at a dance studio where I saw Ignite play, but that's besides the point. But they were like, the smaller venues where they're easy to get $5 ticket and you're in there. Like I feel like that accessibility was huge too at the time.
Right. And especially too, just like you said, these unconventional places where you really felt like, oh, this is not what everybody's experiencing. Cause like, when you say I'm going to a concert, that's a whole different vibe than, going to a dance studio in Orange or whatever. Like it's
totally.
And were you, as you started to go to shows and become more immersed in that culture, I mean, like you said, you had a supportive relationship with your parents. Were they ever kind of like, what the hell is Patrick doing? Like, why? Because I think at one point you were straight edge, and I'm sure maybe you X'd up at one point in your life. Like, were there alarm bells because your parents probably had no context for what you were bringing home?
Yeah, very much so. I remember specifically when I was hanging out at the Krishna temple in Laguna, and wearing quite a few choker necklaces, and my mom wasn't stoked on it, but she tells me this story now where she's like telling a friend like, oh, my son, he's just like listening to this really aggressive music and wearing all these necklaces, and she's like, well, are his grades okay? She's like, yeah. Is he like getting into drugs or anything? And she's like, no. And she's like, well, then you don't have any problems, and I feel like she had kind of had that, maybe that revelation that it wasn't necessarily a negative thing,
Yeah.
Or the things that bothered her about the aggressiveness and the style that went along with it too, like weren't the worst things that could happen.
Right. Yeah. It is. Well, I really like that the paths that you're talking about, where it's like that level of responsibility where it's like, okay, on the surface level, there is nothing wrong with this, where it's like, okay, he's getting all right grades. Like there, he isn't, being irresponsible and showing up at, 4 a.m. drunk or whatever. Like all of these things that parents would be fearful of. But then there's like that element of just like, but what is that? Like, the beaded necklaces, like, I don't understand this. Where does this come from?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Were you, and kind of on that tip too, just because that is such a interesting and frankly bygone era of that whole, spirituality influence, especially what you're talking about, like the, Hare Krishna, and then obviously the combination of, Christian hardcore starting to come about. It sounds like you were always kind of, I guess, attracted to the spiritual nature of how bands were expressing themselves within that. Is that correct in that assumption?
Yeah. I mean, I think for like the Christian hardcore, I think it was definitely kind of in the accessibility vein, and also the getting the thumbs up to drive myself to those concerts. I feel like it was a little bit less intimidating if you're going to a church or something, from my parents' perspective. So I think it was, yeah. And that was, I mean, MXPX was playing every other month, I feel like, in South Orange County. So we were always going to those shows. And then I think the going to the Krishna temple was kind of half inspired by Shelter and half inspired by my vegetarianism at the time.
Totally, yeah. They got cheap vegetarian meals.
I'm still a pescatarian, but I was very wearing it on my sleeve at the time.
You know what's coming, right? Band merch. Band merch is the life's blood of all things independent music. I don't care whether you're an active touring band or whether you're just sitting at home being able to create music. The only way that these bands can do that is via their merch. And rockabilia.com is the place where you should buy all of your band merch for a multitude of reasons. One of them is that it is officially licensed. So that means bands get paid for this stuff. This isn't unauthorized, Instagram account, bootleg stuff. Like, don't get me wrong. I have been known to buy bootleg shirts here or there, but when I buy it from Rockabilia, I know that I am doing the right thing. We do wrong things from time to time, and I'm not above that. But promo code, use this, 100 words or less. That gets you 10% off your order, and you will be able to save money, support bands, and support an independent business. I love what they do. They ship out from the Midwest, all independently run, and they've been existing for 30 plus years. I dare you to go on their website and not find at least 4 to 5 items that you want right away. So again, promo code 100 words or less, 10% off your order. That way they know that you listen to this show and you are a fan and you want to save money. So it's great. Let's go. Rockabilia.com. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We've all been there. Life's going good. Relationships are awesome. Work's great, family life's great, and then all of a sudden, some things start to happen. A wheel falls off. You, maybe have some issues at work, and then all of a sudden you're in a spot where you feel bogged down and you might not know who to turn to. You're like, I don't want to bug my family or friends with this stuff. That is why I wholeheartedly endorse therapy. I've used it myself, and I think it is an incredible tool. That is why I love working with BetterHelp, because if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online. That is the key point. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge if you feel like it. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can absolutely get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/words today, and you get 10% off your first month. Please use the code, and that way you can sign up with BetterHelp and live a more empowered life. That's betterhelp.com/words. Try therapy.
BetMGM, an authorized gaming partner of the NBA, welcomes basketball fans with a slam dunk offer. Simply place a $10 moneyline wager on any game. If either team hits a three-pointer, you'll automatically receive $200 in bonus bets. Just use bonus code JERSEY200 when you place your bet. Enjoy this NBA season like never before with a variety of parlay selection features, player props, and the best daily promotions in the business. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com and use bonus code JERSEY200 to win $200 in bonus bets if either team hits a three-pointer in the game you wager on. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. New Jersey only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. First online real money wager only. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expire 7 days from issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey, y'all. This is Dr. Joy Harden Bradford, host of the award-winning weekly podcast, Therapy for Black Girls. Our incredible community of sisters has been building the Therapy for Black Girls podcast for 5 years running. And over that time, we've published over 250 episodes and gained over 18 million podcast downloads. During this time, we've tackled the stigma surrounding mental health and shared conversations to help us all understand ourselves and others a little better. Hundreds of incredible licensed mental health care professionals and other experts have joined us to share tips on taking better care of ourselves. We flipped through the pages of your favorite romance novels with author Tia Williams, checked in with Grammy Award-winning artist Michelle Williams, and discussed the hurdles of balancing competitive sports, motherhood, and mental health with Olympic athlete Natasha Hastings. 5 years down and many more years of work to be done. Join us now by checking out the Therapy for Black Girls podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Was there, I guess, in your mind as you started to really go to these shows, did you immediately get attracted to the idea of wanting to play in a band, or was that, again, something you kind of worked yourself up to?
It was, I think it was more of a progression, because I think in high school I was doing a zine and buying a lot of, going to the record stores, going to Underdog and Laguna and Bionic and whatever, and Tower off El Toro. But I think it was a progression for sure, because the zine and going to shows was definitely where my head was at in high school. And I feel like it took until the end of high school to put more like playing music as the next step.
Got it. What was the, cause I love zines. I did not know that you did a zine. What was the name of your zine?
Yeah, it was Hopscotch. It was more of like a ska punk zine.
Sure.
Yeah. Near the end of high school, I was going to more shows and definitely kind of more in the ska punk vein was like definitely my flavor. So I was covering that scene, Ray.
Sure. Dude, respect, man. I mean, how many issues did you end up putting out? Were you just kind of like, I imagine like working on it in, art class time and stuff like that? Or were you kind of, just working on it all the time?
No, it was art class. I think, I was doing a photography class and, developing a lot of the photos that I was taking at the shows. So that was a huge part of it. And then, Rob, who's in Limbeck too, like we both had zines and he had more of a punk driven one. And, I think that's where my like kind of graphic designy art stuff, was scratching that itch back then. But, yeah, I guess photography class was probably one of my cornerstones of the creation of the zine.
Sure. And were you taking pictures at all of the shows and then obviously putting them in your zine?
I was indeed.
I love that especially too, when you feel like you can put something out in the world and create something from nothing, especially as a kid, like that is the most empowering feeling possible. I mean, it's still, even as an adult, like it's so cool.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I wish I had that same, spirit that I did that, you grow older and you're aware of, you're aware of faux pas and,
Sure.
and, whatever. But I feel like my creative freedom at the time was, at an all-time high.
Yep. No, for sure. That makes sense. And what was, I guess, your life path supposed to be, in regards to, did you have visions of, following in your parents' footsteps about whatever their professions were? Or was it just kind of like, oh, go to school and then go to college and kind of figure it out?
Yeah, I think it was more the latter. Like I was definitely, let's go to college and see where that leads. And I remember I went to UC Irvine and studied fine art and graphic design but not really sure of where that would lead, next. And I remember taking classes. I guess that I declared my major the second year, but the first year I didn't have a major and I was unsure of what I was doing at all with my life. And I think I identified those in that first year. But then, yeah, I guess that's when Limbeck was starting up. So I feel like that was creeping in and then eventually took over the priority.
Sure. And so was Limbeck, I know you mentioned that you and Rob are playing in, some whatever B-rate ripoff or maybe even C-rate at your description, creating ripoff bands. Or that was during high school that you were doing those bands?
Yeah, I guess where I got my feet wet at senior year, Rob and I started a band just to play the Battle of the Bands at high school. And
that's huge.
It was just fully a joke project band to get out of class and play the Battle of the Bands. And it was kind of like a high fives kind of like rock and roll kind of band, and we were called the Spirit Club, and we won the Battle of the Bands and got to play a couple assemblies, which was killer. And
sure.
then high school ended, and then Rob joined Limbeck. There was already a band that had started prior to him being in it. And then after he joined, he was like, "Oh, I'd love to get Patrick in because we sing harmonies together and it's pretty fun." So then I joined shortly after that.
Got it. That's honestly, Spirit Club, that is a very good name for a band, because usually like the first band names are, you can close your eyes and immediately pick out what they sound like. But yeah. Spirit Club is pretty like, that's nebulous. Like you could go a lot of different directions. So that's a pretty good band name, guys.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah, I mean, I will reveal my first band name. It was called Doom Society, and you can imagine exactly what it sounds like.
Heavy.
Yeah, totally heavy or Liberty Spike Punk, which is exactly the juncture in which we lived in, where it was like we're not exactly a hardcore band, we're not exactly a punk band, so Doom Society is what it is. So, like you said, you got your feet wet playing in that. And then, once you got invited to join Limbeck, I mean, I definitely remember at the very, very beginning of Limbeck, as far as, starting to see you guys appear on flyers and play shows at Coos and stuff like that. It seemed like you sat sort of firmly at that, pop punk adjacent world where it was that, there was a desire to do something more than that, but it was very much that world, and you were playing specifically with, Up Syndrome every other weekend or whatever.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
And was that, I guess that was kind of the manifesto initially, like where it's like, hey, like this is obviously fun, and we're just kind of like leaning into this rather than, having some sort of grand vision for where you wanted to take the band.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was, playing, like you said, playing Coos, playing Kona Lanes, Chain. I don't know if the Chain Reaction was there yet, but
yeah, Public Storage probably.
Probably exactly. Yeah, I think that was fine. Just playing on the weekends, I think was our thing. I don't think we strayed much further from Orange County at that time, and that was fine.
Right.
That was totally fine.
Right. Yeah, that was. Yeah. I mean, yeah, when you're able to. If you're the loftiest goal is to, open for homegrown, and like you do that, and it's just like, all right, well, looks like we made it. There we go. That's all we wanted.
Total. Well, I guess that's a good segue into that next step was playing with homegrown, because our Orange/Tustin connection, and that led to touring with them / putting out our first record that we kind of don't count,
the practice record, yeah,
on their record label or Adam's record label at the time,
right?
Yeah,
I also do remember. I mean, I distinctly remember that record because it was at that time where there was a lot of bands that existed in Orange County, but when you signed with a record label, it felt so different, regardless of the size of it. And so I remember where it was like, oh, like, Limbeck's going to put out a record on a Homegrown's label. And it was like, damn, dog, they must have, like, they made it. Like, this is wild.
Totally. Stamp of legitimacy for sure.
Right. And was that the first time that you actually went to a recording studio to, put down your stuff on tape?
Yeah. I think we'd probably done a couple of demo sessions around in people's, quote unquote studios, but then we actually recorded our first full length with them, with Ed Rose out in Eudora, Kansas.
Right. That's right. And how weird of an experience was that, being able to not only travel out of state to record with somebody, but record with a person who you obviously looked up to at that point?
Yeah, completely game changer, I think, for us. I think it was, like I said earlier, being hugely influenced by the Get Up Kids, and then having a couple bucks from the record label to say, whoa, let's go out to Kansas and spend a week and make a record with one of these guys that's made all the records that we listen to. It was pretty surreal.
Sure. And when you started to play shows, maybe out of state, and had a little bit more experience in putting yourself out there, was it, I mean, you're an outgoing person, but I'm sure there's elements of you that, and especially the way that you present yourself, I'm using air quotes here, like publicly, like you're friendly, but it's not one of those things where like you're, putting on a stage persona where it's like, hey, here's Limbeck. Like, was that, just kind of the way that you always wanted to sort of present yourself, on stage? Or was that something you had to kind of like learn to be comfortable with yourself on stage? How did that transpire?
I mean, it definitely a progression of becoming more comfortable and being myself / ourselves on stage. I think, a lot of awkward shows in our backyard, I think, got us there. But I think we always valued just a band that had a relatable stage presence. And that's probably from playing, coups so much and being right in front of people and having conversations with them, Sure. I think we always appreciated that for what it was, and almost took that to, opening for bigger bands on bigger tours. It's like, we'd appreciate the fact that you would be a little bit more relatable from the stage, like, we're hanging out, like, come hang out with us at merch after the show. I think maybe just from where we wanted musicians to feel to us, that's what we wanted to be to other people. Does that make sense?
It does, especially too with that projection of, like, you want to be approachable because, not even from like a business strategy, but like, this is like, I just want to hang out. Like, it's cool you came to the show. Thank you for watching my band. Like, let's be friends. And that was, that existed, that permeated through the band, regardless of, the sort of tour or who you were playing to. That was always kind of the credo, it seemed like, whether you articulated it or not. Yeah, no,
I think you hit the nail on the head. That's definitely just like a relatability where, like, we're hanging out, like, we're all on this, we're all on the same page here. Like, let's hang for sure.
Right. Yeah. And it didn't feel, put on in any respect. Cause I do think that, bands, especially of the, independent variety, there are sometimes that there is that level of like put onness. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's just like a bands have a real deliberate approach. Whereas like, it feels like with you guys, you just kind of, put it on like a, old comfy sweater where it's just like, oh yeah, this is what Limbeck is. I get it.
Yeah. I feel like it, in our early touring day, or like our first 5 years of touring, I think we have a claim, and I'd have to ask somebody what it was, but I want to say it was about 5 years where we never got a hotel, where we were staying with people after the show. And I think that was part of the vibe, just like, we're hanging out and we're friends here, and can we sleep on the floor,
Dude, there is nothing better than, being on stage and being like, whatever, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and being like, to the 40 people are at the show, you're like, hey, does anybody have a place to stay tonight? You just talk to us at the merch table. I don't need your confirmation right now, but.
But I mean, I think that, like, we've always lived pretty modest. We've always toured and been a band pretty modestly and humbly. And I feel like, we also appreciated the whole experience of it. And I think you get such a different experience, obviously, in more ways than one, hanging out with people and sleeping on their floors than you do sleeping in a hotel room.
You're totally right. Cause I think when you don't have that, connective tissue, not even so much from the idea that like, oh, you gotta put in your lumps and, not spend any money on yourself. But it does become this weird swashbuckling adventure that you're on where it's like, we never would have met this person if they weren't kind enough to, invite us into their house. And sometimes that works out really well. And then sometimes it makes it for a really funny story later on.
It makes up for some great stories later. Totally. And I think, like you just said, like, I don't think we appreciated it for what it was at that time, maybe, but in hindsight, it's like, yeah, just the experiences that we got were like tenfold from, and amazing, friends that we still are in touch with these days. I think it's pretty amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think to that point too, it really, whether or not, well, I know that you did this deliberately, but with the Hi, Everything's Great record, like how, autobiographical and specific you were, where it was like mentioning your friends' names and pulling these things that, bands may clearly have done in the past, but you were so specific throughout the entire record. It really felt like, oh yeah, like I know Julia, like, or it's just, and it didn't feel stupid where it was just like, oh yeah, they're singing about their friends. And it's very deliberate about that because, they probably stayed in this person's floor or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe that is more true in hindsight, where it's like, it wasn't a show, it was just us being us. And I think that's, we were singing about what we knew about and felt good singing about,
Right. And I think to that point too, and I know you have seen this, where when bands get on that hamster wheel of, here we go, we're touring 200 days out of the year and we have a new record to put out, and the only thing that we can sing about is tour. And that gets pretty old pretty quick for most people. They're just like, wow, like life in a van. That's weird. Okay, there's another record about that. So I think you guys kind of skinned that a little bit differently, where you could pull in these, like you said, autobiographical elements of your life.
Yeah, totally.
And speaking of touring, your relationship with it I'm sure has ebbed and flowed over time, where, when you first get out on the road, you're so excited and everything's a new experience. When did it kind of, I guess, change for you to have a different relationship where it started to feel, less exciting, more like work, or did it have a, general consistency of like excitement versus the, sometimes lows that happen on tour?
That's a good question. I feel like it stayed very positive in the fact that we always took it at the face value that we were fortunate enough to be driving around and exploring. I feel like it was always kind of adventure, and we were the kind of guys that would wake up to go, swim in a river or go hit some taco spot that was recommended. I feel like we always took advantage of the fact that we were in the position we were in. And I feel like it might have become less fun, I think, when things got, honestly, Ray, like more near the end of our full-time touring, where I feel like it got more stressful when, and I know this is a jump, a jump on the timeline, but it was like when Napster and, record sales weren't what they were, and gas was way more expensive. And I feel like the stress of all that made it a little less fun for what it was, where you are stressing about, people being at the shows and buying shirts and like having a couple bucks by the time you come home, so that you're because at the time we were touring pretty much full time. So you were, I was living at home, but needed a couple bucks to live on, after the fact. But I think that really became stressful.
I can understand that the business implications, and that was actually something I was going to ask about too, because it seems, you guys clearly worked with, booking agents and record labels and stuff. And every band has to figure out how to navigate the business aspect of their band. Was that something that came comfortable to you, or was that sort of a necessary evil that you needed to deal with? How did you manage that within your band?
I feel like we were the kind of guys that we did a lot. If we could do it ourselves, we would do it ourselves. We were go-getters in that respect, where, we weren't too proud to do the legwork of mailing stuff out or making phone calls or designing flyers or, all that stuff was actually fun for us. And I think we enjoyed it. So I think, I think we were more go-getters in that respect.
Right. And once you started to bring other people into the equation, did it feel, obviously it felt right because you were, taking and making those decisions. But there, the trade-off of, like you were talking about towards the end of the band, the stress of being like, oh man, there better be 150 people tonight, because otherwise, it's really going to tank the profit and loss sheet at the end of the tour or whatever.
Yeah, right. I don't think we were pretty, low overhead operation where we did have a booking agent to get the shows booked. And I think we had a manager that we had our manager we had have, because he's still a bud, but a great relationship where it wasn't like he knew we weren't, making millions or anything. So I feel like he was cool with the ebb and flow. And that wasn't one of the stresses. I think it, we were living humbly, but like, I think it just, it just made it tricky. It made it tricky. Not that we did, I don't think we didn't really like have a lot of, percentages to, business wise to like pay out here or there. I think, we had a low frills operation. That was pretty bare bones, all things considered.
Right.
But it just kind of
you ran lean. Right.
Yeah. We ran super, super lean.
Right.
BetMGM, an authorized gaming partner of the NBA, welcomes basketball fans with a slam dunk offer. Simply place a $10 moneyline wager on any game. If either team hits a three-pointer, you'll automatically receive $200 in bonus bets. Just use bonus code JERSEY200 when you place your bet. Enjoy this NBA season like never before with a variety of parlay selection features, player props, and the best daily promotions in the business. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com and use bonus code JERSEY200 to win $200 in bonus bets if either team hits a three-pointer in the game you wager on. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. New Jersey only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. First online real money wager only. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expire 7 days from issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Do you feel rich? Do you feel Friday night rich? Every Friday night, you can get a grilled steak and a fresh lobster tail for just $24.99. Kick off your weekend in style. Only at TGI Fridays.
And I know, I just remember anecdotally, there was you yourself always randomly popped up in these these marketing things. Whether it was like, I remember it didn't at one point Limbeck, but wasn't called Limbeck, was in like a iMac commercial, right?
Oh gosh, yes.
Okay. I don't know. Patrick, I apologize the way my brain works, but I just remember these random things because it was like, what? Like, where did this come from? And then like, I again, super random, but like,
no, I mean, that's a wild story in itself. That was a little on the earlier side of things, but just it happened to be a friend of our sister was working with an ad agency making a commercial for Apple, or a potential commercial for Apple. Okay. And they needed a garage band. So we were a band that practiced in garages. So we fit the bill.
Did it actually like air, or was it basically just on kind of spec and then never went anywhere?
Yeah, no. Can I give you the long story?
Please. I would love to hear it.
Okay, cool. So they're like, oh, well, we're just going to tape this and see where it goes. And to put it, in the history of Apple, it was around that time when they had those big, colorful, orange or cyan colored monitors, and it was, they were introducing iMovie, and it was like this commercial where you can make your own music video. So they needed a band, and they liked one of our songs that fit well for it. So one afternoon we recorded with the crew and did like a little music video around the garage and around the backyard. And then they're like, hey, okay, we'll let you know. We're going to pitch it to Apple and see what happens, So maybe a couple months later, we're on tour. And while we're on tour, our parents all get a phone call, and it's like, hey, we're going to use the commercial in a print, or we're going to do a print ad for the feature. And your son's likeness is going to be in the thing. We're going to pay you a couple $100. Cool. And then our parents are like, oh my gosh, we're making money for their band. They're ecstatic. They're ecstatic. So they, whatever, maybe it's a verbal, I don't know. There wasn't any contracts at the time, but it became a pretty huge print ad campaign where, back a Rolling Stone, back a Time magazine, and some pretty cool placements. Like you said, they didn't use our real band name, so I don't feel like it, although we did, the band name was Garage Monkeys, and we did buy garagemonkeys.com thinking that it might connect, although that was had no benefit whatsoever. But anyhow, and then they're like, hey, we'll let you know if it goes to air, because they did do a video version of it. And then, a couple of months later or whatever, we're on tour and a friend calls and they're like, hey, I was watching MTV around midnight and they played your commercial. And we were like, whoa, they never told us, you know, and totally. That's crazy. And then, and then this is where it got a little sour, where we had questionable a lawyer at the time.
Sure.
And he saw dollar signs where, we never signed a contract for the commercial. And so he was gonna like sue Apple at the time. And it became this really, really ugly situation. And then I'll spare you those details.
Sure.
But then they got a sour taste in their mouth by the whole thing and kind of cut the commercial after that. But we got a tour van.
Wow, that's
there you go.
Yeah, that is a very well, because I just think anytime those things happen, it not only is it random and happenstance, but like anytime it happens within the context of punk and hardcore and DIY stuff, you can't help but be excited because it's just like that idea. It's like even to this day where it's a band from our scene, quote unquote, like plays a late night show. It's just like, wait, that's so sick. That's happened. And it's like all those little things just get you really excited because who knows, like that, Garage Monkeys thing could have introduced a kid to, something that like completely impacted their world. And all of a sudden is like, oh, now I listen to Minor Threat because of this commercial. I mean, I know that's a stretch, but totally. That's incredible. So like you were articulating, when the more, I guess, business implications of the band started to, dampen some of the enthusiasm for kind of continuing with the band. I know it's always like it's a process to wind something like that down because, you were just like, well, this is pretty much my identity for the past 10 years of my life. I was known as Patrick from Limbeck and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So was it difficult for you, I guess, to, for lack of a better term, transition out of it, even though, people and Limbeck still exist to this day for obvious reasons, as, you've put out music ever since. But was it hard for you to, I guess, transition into the quote unquote real world?
I think yes and no. I think, I guess at the time it was, I had my first son in 2007. And I feel like, I guess I should have mentioned that earlier where that's definitely one of the stresses where it was like, oh my gosh, I'm making no money. Like,
right. And I have a child, right?
This is brutal. Like that, I don't know how much longer I can do this if things don't, go in the opposite direction. So I think that was one of the definitely reality checks at the time. Yeah, definitely big reality check.
Right. Yeah. And I guess with that idea of being like, okay, I'm kind of putting this side of my creative self, on the shelf, so to speak. And then being able to kind of figure out like, okay, what do I do from here?
Yeah. I guess I didn't finish my thought.
It's okay.
Yeah. I think that was like, it was just like, okay, well, this isn't going to work full time. Right. So it was like, kind of that reality, the reality of that became, I understood that, whereas like, I can't do this like we were doing this. And at the time, the three of us, Rob, Justin, and myself, lived in California, in Southern California, and our drummer John was living in Milwaukee. So, since we're all still Southern California, it was like, well, yeah, maybe we'll continue to do this. We're not going to do some full like last tour because like we don't want to close the door on the band and close the door on that. So I feel like it was more of a winding down than it was a door shutting for us.
Right. Like, yeah, the ripping off the Band-Aid, we're going to, break up. Like we hate each other. It was like just the realities of life made it to where, oh yeah, we can't be out for 150 days out of the year.
Exactly. Yeah. It became very, very apparent that it was like the 6 to 8 months of a year on the road wasn't going to work.
Right.
but it was like, I think that was the thing. It was like, well, we're not going to, like I said, we're not going to close the door on this. Like, it's like, if we can still get together and do whatever, like, let's keep that option open.
Right. Absolutely. And kind of, I'm going backwards a little bit here, but just the, when you felt like the band had momentum, or, people outside of the Southern California area were, coming to your shows and, singing along with you, even if it was like 10 people or whatever. When did you feel, I guess, for lack of a better term, that the band felt real, where there were things that were happening? What kind of, it doesn't need to be this like, lightning strike moment or whatever, but when did you personally sort of tick that and be like, oh, wow, like people are paying attention?
Man, I guess it was that, we did it. We were making circles around the country a couple times a year at least. So I feel like, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, just the, like you said, like the numbers getting bigger and people singing along and requesting songs. And I feel like we were taking note of that. And, I guess that was that midpoint of the band where it was like we were still doing the tours that were a little bit more in the pop punk vein, and I think for whatever reason we were always asked out on quite a few pop punk tours, and that was, like I said earlier, that was definitely where we came from, and I think in our heads we were hoping that we would bridge this gap into this kind of rootsy alt country touring circuit that never fully happened. But I think right in that middle of that, where we were doing these bigger tours with bigger pop punk bands, I think it felt good to have kids in that crowd singing along.
Right. Yeah. Especially like that idea that you were kind of this interesting bridge band where people that didn't want to hear the same band play 4 times in a row on a package tour could hear Limbeck and be like, oh yeah, this is poppy but different. So it's not just like the same band playing all spots on that tour.
Yeah, we're either a breath of fresh air or they hated us.
Of course, right. Totally. They're like, what is this country crap? And it's like, oh geez. Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, it's like, you guys crawled so Lucero could walk and run. I'm just kidding. How did you get, because I know that you have been involved in the, active wear, lifestyle wear industry for quite some time, working at, Volcom. Mm-hmm. And how did you get piped into that? I mean, I know that you've always existed sort of adjacent to that because you have always been, surfing and existing in the water. How did you get piped into that?
I mean, it was actually a really beautiful transition from post nonstop touring into finishing up school, where I was like, oh my God, I've got to figure this out, do something for my family. And I was finishing up school and had lunch with a friend, and I was telling her that I was, unsure of what my next step is. And she's like, well, get an internship here at Volcom. I've got the perfect person for you. And she took me upstairs and I met with this guy, Ryan Emigart, who was running the record label at the time, and got an internship with him doing graphic design for the Volcom Entertainment music label. So it was he appreciated where I came from with music and touring and enjoying graphic design, and it led straight in there. I'm very fortunate for that chain of events,
Right. Well, yeah, because sometimes, internships, or it's that weird, like, okay, I've been here for a year. Like, can I get an actual job? Like, is this transitioning into something? And you don't want to like bum people out by asking that question, but you're like, I would really love to work here.
Totally. I think, my past of being involved in graphic design through Limbeck and, having that side of it that, we handled our own flyers, and that was basically my portfolio. Here's a record layout I did. Here's the handful of our crappy flyers that I've done, and I think him appreciating that, and the fact that we'd been touring for a while, and and wanting to help me into the next step, I think. And, getting to know each other, I think, just personally, I think was a huge, I'm fortunate for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Two last things I want to hit on before I let you go was the, because you are a father, a family man from that perspective, I'm sure the lens that you have raised your children through have undeniably been influenced by, you being raised within the independent music scene. How do you think that, I guess, influences your parenting in general? Because like we were joking about earlier, just the idea of like sending your kids off on tour. It's like, oh, like that's weird. I'm surprised my parents did that because I wouldn't do that with my kids. How do all those thoughts kind of ping pong around your head as I talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's a weird thing though. It's like, I had a natural progression into that, from being surrounded with the people that I was surrounded with in high school. And I feel like I don't want to be too heavy-handed with pushing my kids into any similar directions in myself. Like I feel like I can introduce that stuff, but not be heavy-handed with it, because I want their progression to be natural, where they're discovering things on their own. And for taking a note from my parents and being supportive of that. As long as it's checking all the right boxes,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Just that especially looking at it with the idea that it's like, oh yeah, once my kid's 7, like they're going to get into Minor Threat. And it's like, what are you talking? Like, no, they're not. Like they shouldn't, because if they heard it and they liked it, like there's probably something, a little bit off. Like music is.
I can't say that I haven't bought them Minor Threat shirts and whatnot, no. But I feel like, and I just want it to be, I want it to be natural, where I feel like that was the excitement of me figuring that out. And, like you touched on, like I didn't really have an older sibling or anything, but it was definitely like that discovery that felt exciting to me at the time to make my way. And I feel like I see that, having the perspective now, like where I hope my kids have that. And I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to be heavy handed with it either.
Right. You don't want to lead the witness.
Exactly.
And the last thing is the vinyl for Hi Everything Is Great with the postcards. Like, I mean, it's still one of just like the kitschiest / coolest things that I ever saw in regards to vinyl packaging. Yet it was so simple, but it just felt so at home. Was that your brainchild? Where did that kind of come up?
I think it was, was that combination. Rob and I were both doing photography in high school, and Rob definitely stuck on the photography path more than I did, going into touring, and he was taking a lot of the photos at the time. And I think just given that record had so many geographical references and stuff, I think the postcard thing, I I don't know if it was Rob's idea, or we actually worked with Dan Askew, who runs Second Nature. Yeah. He designed that record, and I think it might have been Dan.
Okay.
I'm kind of blanking on what the process was at this point, as far as the creative direction where it was established. But we worked pretty closely with him on the project, and man, like it's at this point in my life, like seeing a project that fully was such a 100% nailed it on the direction that we were going for it, and it came out exactly how, I have no desire to change anything about it.
Yeah, totally. You're like,
I guess it's a rarity, like you're like, oh man, I wish we would have chosen this stock or whatever. But I think we really nailed it. Right, Ray?
Right.
Nail it?
You know what? I agree wholeheartedly. It definitely, I often pull that out and like look at those little postcards, and I'm just like, God, this is so cute and cool, and it's everything. Like that record, it's like every element of it just like makes me incredibly happy. And I agree. You nailed it out of the park.
Yeah, we're pretty proud of it.
I know. Yeah, you should be. You should be. Well, I really appreciate you hanging out with me, Patrick. I knew this was going to be a fun one. So, yeah, thanks for letting me ping pong around your brain.
Oh, heck yeah. My pleasure, Ray.
So that was Patrick, and I appreciate him hanging out with me on this beautiful podcast because I selfishly just like having these conversations. Sometimes people stop down and ask, or it's just like, you've been doing this for an absurdly long period of time. Like, why do you still do it? And ultimately I'm like, because it's fun. It's really fun for me to have these conversations and find out things that I normally maybe wouldn't get to ask in other circumstances. Because, I run into a person like Patrick at shows. I don't get to sit there and just do a real deep dive into him. But anyways, thank you, Patrick, for coming on the show. Next week, episode 499. That's insane to say, but I'm going international for this one. I brought in Tomas, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but actually, let's try it. Tomas Ligendahl. He plays in a band called Breach, and he also plays in a band currently called Norna, Norna. This band is amazing. Breach is amazing. If you are a fan of Neurosis, ISIS, all of that stuff, and have not listened to Breach, please do yourself a favor. But I had to have Tomas on, and we talk Swedish hardcore and a bunch of other stuff because that is where he is from. He is from Sweden, exists in the whole, Umeå hardcore scene, and it's great. And I'm obsessed with that music scene, and anytime I can talk about that with others, I do. So Tomas from Breach and Norna is on next week. Can't wait. All right. Until then, please be safe, everybody.
You know what it's like to endlessly seek a remedy. Are you ready for a prescription that's once daily, steroid-free?
VTAMA Tapinarof Cream 1% is a prescription topical treatment for adults with plaque psoriasis. Do not use if you're allergic to VTAMA Cream. The most common side effects of VTAMA Cream include red raised bumps around the hair pores, pain or swelling in the nose and throat, skin rash or irritation, including itching and redness, peeling, burning or stinging, headache, itching, and flu. Tell your doctor about all the medicines you take, and if you're pregnant or plan to be, ask your doctor if VTAMA Cream is right for you. You deserve more from your topical. To learn more, visit topicaluprising.com.
Your favorite podcast, Therapy for Black Girls, is celebrating 5 years of empowering conversations as we continue to make mental health and wellness accessible. In addition to weekly chats with some of your favorite mental health professionals and other experts, we've flipped through the pages of your favorite romance novels with author Tia Williams, checked in with Grammy Award-winning artist Michelle Williams, and talked hurdles in sports, motherhood, and mental health with Olympic athlete Natasha Hastings. From our team to your podcast app, join us in celebrating 5 years of the Therapy for Black Girls podcast. Check it out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Bridgewater, the hit fiction podcast, is back. A supernatural thriller presented in immersive 3D binaural audio.
The Bridgewater Triangle. There is some kind of mystical force in this region that attracts monsters and paranormal activity.
There's something beyond our understanding going on here.
Starring Supernatural's Misha Collins, The Walking Dead's Melissa Ponzio, and Rogue One's Alan Tudyk. Written by Lauren Shippen and created by me, Aaron Mahnke. Listen to Bridgewater on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.